On Mother's Day in 2016, Jessie Bardwell disappeared without a trace from her apartment in Texas.
Here, Richardson police descended on his daughter's apartment complex here, searching for her.
Investigators on this case say they found blood evidence as well as a bullet hole in Lowe's car.
Welcome back to Crime Delvi. My name is Luca. Today, we're diving into the case of Jessie Bardwell, a 27-year-old woman who was close to her family, loved the ocean, loved music, and texted her dad almost every day. But after she moved to Texas with Jason Lowe, Jessie started to change. And the more disturbing question is, how can someone be pulled away from their entire family, right in front of everyone? Now, let's give it a go.
Jessie Merle Garner Bardwell was born on September 10, 1988, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, a small port city on the Gulf of Mexico. Her father was Gary Levin Bardwell, a retired firefighter with the Pascagoula Fire Department. Her mother was Carla Ivy Bardwell. When Jessie was 14, her parents divorced, but they were still both present, still loving, and still raising Jessie and her brother, Brandon Bardwell, the best way they could. Later, Gary remarried Gina Capley, and Jessie quickly grew to love her stepmother the same way she loved her family. Years later, Gary still called Jessie by the familiar name he had used since she was little, Beautiful Jessie.
You and Jessie were close. She was Daddy's little girl.
She was. From the time she was born, I still have a back ache from Jessie wanting me to hold her. You know, she would jump up when she was...
After graduating from Resurrection High School in 2007, Jessie went on to attend Ole Miss, the University of Southern Mississippi, and the University of South Alabama. But if there was one thing that truly made her happy, it wasn't the classroom.
She was so beautiful, inside and out. She honestly was a special person. She was adventurous. She was very independent. I think part of that got to her in the end, being independent.
Jessie lived by her own rhythm, free, independent, and sometimes a little too willing to believe in the good in other people. When she was around 22, she moved to Orange Beach, Alabama. In many ways, it was almost the perfect place for Jessie. Blue water, salt air, sun-soaked afternoons along the bay. She worked as a server at a well-known waterfront restaurant called Cobalt, which quickly became her second home. Gary was not only a retired firefighter, he was also a musician. From time to time, Cobalt invited him to perform. On those nights, Jessie would often show up just to sit and listen to her dad play music. According to manager Kimberly Asbury, they were not like a typical father and daughter. They were truly friends, and because Gary knew his daughter so well, when Jessie began to change in late 2015, he was the first one to sense that something was wrong. Before that, Jessie had been in a long-term relationship. A relationship that had lasted long enough for her family and friends to see it as a familiar part of her life. But around late 2015, Jessie began making plans to end that relationship. The reason was another man. His name was Jason Michael Lowe, born in 1989. He was an old friend of the boyfriend Jessie was preparing to leave. He was educated, worked in the tech industry in Texas, and to some people around him, Jason seemed like a pretty decent guy, outgoing, easy to talk to, steadily employed, and with nothing particularly alarming on the surface. In other words, if you met Jason at a party, you probably wouldn't immediately think, "Oh great, this is probably the guy who's about to send the whole story off a cliff." On Christmas in 2015, Jessie still came home. still stayed close to her family, still laughed and talked, and still acted like everything was completely normal. According to Jessie Bardwell, at the Bardwell family Christmas gathering that year, Jessie was happy, smiling, and showed no signs that anything was wrong. But what Gary did not know was that his daughter had already planned to leave for Texas shortly after that. Jessie told Kimberly Asbury, her manager and friend at Cobalt, that she was going to Texas for a few weeks to clear her head, get some personal space, and possibly pursue her dream of entering the beauty industry. At first, that sounded pretty reasonable. A young woman wanting a fresh start, a change of scenery, a chance to find a new version of herself. Yeah, on paper, it sounded very Pinterest. But in real life, especially in a case like this, stories about just going away for a few weeks are sometimes how everything starts slipping out of reach. From the moment Jessie moved to Texas, the change became obvious. The girl who used to be lively, who loved seeing friends, who texted her family every day, slowly became quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from being busy with a new life. The kind that feels like someone disappearing from the rhythm of their own life. Jessie's phone was disconnected. Her family and friends could no longer call her directly. If they wanted to talk to Jessie, they had to call the house phone and usually go through Jason. Yeah, very convenient for Jason. Almost every conversation had him there, watching, listening, guarding. And if you've seen cases like this before, then you know this is no longer just a slightly toxic relationship. This is isolation. Eventually, things reached the point where Gary could barely contact Jessie directly anymore. And for a father who used to talk to his daughter almost every day, that silence was not just strange. It was terrifying. Gary called Jason and asked to speak with Jessie. But every time, Jason had a reason. She didn't want to talk. She would call back later. She was busy. Yeah, very convenient. Once again, convenient for Jason. Then one time, Jessie and Jason came back to visit Gary. And the moment Gary saw his daughter, he knew something was wrong. Jessie hugged him longer than usual. The way she stood, the way she looked, the way she talked. Everything was different. No proof needed. No investigative report needed. Sometimes a father's instincts work faster than any warning system. Gary tried to convince Jessie not to go back to Texas. But Jessie still said she wanted to go. She also told him she wanted him to be proud of her. And I think this is the part that hits the hardest. Gary was proud of Jessie. He had always been proud, but in that moment what he felt more strongly was not pride. It was fear. He did not know exactly what was happening. He only knew his daughter was no longer herself. And after Jessie left, Gary did the only thing a father, a musician, and a helpless man could do. He wrote a song for his daughter. The song was called Taken Away. By May 2016, Gary Bardwell could no longer reassure himself. The calls kept hitting the same wall, Jason Lowe. Gary would call, ask where Jessie was, and ask to speak with his daughter. And Jason always had a reason ready. Jessie wasn't there. Jessie would call back. He didn't know where she went. Okay, buddy. Very convincing. If the goal was to sound like someone hiding an entire house fire. Then Mother's Day came, May 8, 2016. Jessie did not call her mother. She did not call her stepmother, Gina. Not one text, not one sign. To the Bardwell family, that was nothing like Jessie. Gary called Jason to ask what was going on. And this time, Jason said something along the lines of he did not know where Jessie was because the two of them didn't depend on each other. A response that might sound normal if you ignored the entire context that Jason had almost been controlling every line of communication with her before that. And for Gary, that was enough. He did not wait any longer. He did not keep guessing. He did not listen to Jason talk in circles anymore. Gary got in his car, left Mississippi, and drove nearly 11 hours straight to Richardson, Texas, to look for his daughter himself. Because if Jason would not let him hear Jessie's voice, then Gary was going to knock on the door himself. Before he got there, Gary told Jason directly. Jessie was not there when he arrived. Jason was going to be in serious trouble. And with Gary Bardwell, that was not some empty threat. When he arrived in Richardson, he went straight to the Richardson Police Department and reported Jessie missing. From there, the situation officially shifted from one family's fear into an investigation. Police quickly went to the apartment Jessie shared with Jason to conduct a welfare check. And Jason began telling his first version of the story. He said the last time he saw Jessie was on the morning of Mother's Day, May 8, 2016. According to Jason, Jessie left the apartment in her gray Acura around a.m. After that, he said he could not contact her because Jessie did not have a cell phone. At first, it sounded reasonable. At least, reasonable in the sense that it works if you do not ask a single follow-up question. At that point, police did not see any obvious signs of a struggle inside the apartment. No Jessie, no Acura, no evidence sitting right in front of them to prove Jason was lying, so the officers left. But Jason's story had a problem. Actually, it had more than one problem. And the first problem was sitting right inside the thing he had just said. The Acura. The next day, May 9, 2016, an officer returned to Jason's apartment. And this time he noticed a detail that was very hard to ignore. Jason drove his Audi SUV into the garage. The front grille was missing, and the vehicle was covered in mud, not lightly dirty. Like, I just drove through a puddle, but seriously muddy. Yeah, a luxury SUV, out mudding. Sounds reasonable too, if you're trying to win the award for most suspicious explanation of the day. To police, that detail was not enough to conclude anything right away. But it was enough to get their attention. Then Jason had to explain why he himself was also covered in mud, and of course, he had an answer. Jason said he had gone looking for Jessie on trails she usually liked to visit. According to him, his dog got loose. He had to chase after it, and that was why he was so dirty. Sounds fine, until the officer looked at the dog. The dog was clean. Yeah, not ideal for Jason's story. Then the officer noticed several cuts on Jason's hand. And once again, Jason blamed the dog. At that point, that poor dog probably had no idea it was being turned into an accomplice in a string of terrible explanations. On May 10, 2016, Jessie's case was assigned to another detective, and almost immediately, Jason's story began to change. Before that, he had said the last time he saw Jessie was around 8 a.m. on May 8. Now he changed it. It was actually closer to 10 a.m. Hours may not sound like much, but in a missing person case, 2 hours can throw off the entire timeline. When the detective arrived at the apartment, Jason still did not look like someone panicking because his girlfriend had disappeared. He was not frantic. He was not anxious. And he did not seem like someone afraid that the worst possible thing had just happened. He just kept repeating that he and Jessie didn't depend on each other. The more you hear it, the less it matches what everyone knew about their relationship. Because before that, Jason had practically been the only doorway her family had to reach Jessie. But now, when she was missing, he talked as if the two of them were just random roommates splitting the electric bill. Very convenient for Jason. And then police checked the story about the Acura. Jason said Jessie had left in her gray Acura on the morning of Mother's Day, May 8, 2016. Clear enough, right? She took the car, went somewhere, and he did not know anything after that. Except there was one problem. That Acura had been sold about 3 weeks earlier. And the person who sold it was Jason. I don't know what Jason thought police were going to do with the whole "she drove away" detail. Nod, close the file, and wish him a nice day? But from that moment on, his story was no longer just suspicious. It was a provable lie. By May 12, 2016, police returned to Jason's apartment. This time, they were not just there to ask a few casual questions. And right then, they saw a plate on the counter with signs connected to illegal substances. That detail was enough to take Jason to the station. Before leaving, police asked for permission to search the apartment. Jason agreed. Sounds pretty cooperative. Until he said they were not allowed inside the garage. The reason? According to Jason, it was a shared space. Yeah, a garage. A shared space. I don't know what software was running in his head at that moment, but it definitely was not the best update. Eventually, Jason still let police in, and the moment that garage door opened, the direction of the investigation changed completely. It was no longer just the question, where is Jessie? It became a much more frightening question. What did Jason do to Jessie? Inside that garage, investigators realized they were standing in front of something much more serious. According to records cited by NBC DFW, they detected a very clear smell of decomposition in the garage. Near Jason's Audi, there was also a bottle of Febreze, the kind of detail that makes you want to sit down for a few seconds because, honestly, did he really think air freshener was going to handle this? The Audi was still covered in mud, but this time the problem was not just on the outside. The inside of the vehicle was also heavily dirty. The missing front grille from earlier was sitting in the back seat, also covered in mud. Jason kept saying it fell off while he was looking for Jessie. And by this point, that explanation no longer sounded like a story. It sounded like someone trying to patch a tire that had already burned down to ash. After that, investigators used Blue Star chemicals in the rear compartment of the Audi. That area lit up, indicating signs of blood. Along with the details inside the garage, it gave police grounds to move this missing person case into a much more serious line of investigation. And I don't think anyone in that garage still believed Jessie had simply driven off somewhere. A liquid leaking from underneath the vehicle also tested presumptive positive for blood. To put it mildly, that vehicle was a rolling mess. And then came another very bad detail for Jason. A neighbor reported seeing him trying to clean the vehicle on the night of May 7, 2016. That was before Mother's Day, before Gary reported Jessie missing, and before Jason told police Jessie had left in the Acura, the same car he had sold weeks earlier. By this point, the story that Jessie just left on her own had basically died right there in that garage. Jason's carelessness eventually became an advantage for police. On May 12, 2016, after finding illegal substances in the apartment, they had enough reason to take Jason to the station on a possession charge. And yes, in a missing person case filled with questions, the thing that first pulled him out of the apartment was a plate on the counter. Not exactly the kind of criminal mastermind plan he could put on his LinkedIn profile. But while Jason was being held, the evidence in the garage and in the vehicle started speaking for Jessie. The smell of decomposition, signs of blood in the rear compartment of the Audi, the collapsed story about the Acura. Those details were enough for police to go further. One day later, Jason Lowe was charged with murder, even though Jessie's body had not yet been found. WFAA also reported that Lowe was arrested first on a drug charge, then charged with murder the next day, before Jessie's body was discovered. When questioned, Jason did not seem like someone who wanted to help find his missing girlfriend. But then, about a week later, everything shifted. On May 19, 2016, Jason led police and prosecutors to a rural area in Farmersville, Texas, where Jessie Bardwell's body was believed to have been hidden. Following Jason's directions, police went to a remote piece of land near Farmersville, Texas. And there they found Jessie. According to the case account, Jessie was found wrapped in a blue bedsheet with a red strap around her upper body. Part of her body was covered with bubble wrap, with a black truck bed liner and a flat piece of metal placed over her, all of it giving the clear impression that someone had tried to hide her, not simply panicked and didn't know what to do. And around the area, investigators also found towels, plastic gloves, cargo straps, and pieces from Jason's vehicle still stuck in the mud. Jessie's condition made the official identification process take longer. It took about a week for the medical examiner to confirm that it was Jessie Bardwell. And then another blow hit her family. The exact cause of death could not be determined. In the end, the cause was recorded as homicidal violence, meaning violence that led to death in a homicide case. But how, where, and exactly by what means remained blanks the Bardwell family had to live with. And I think this is one of the cruelest parts of the case, because for many victims' families, they at least have a clear answer. One final line, something to hold on to. Jessie's family did not get that. Before Jessie was found, the community held a candlelight vigil. At that point, people still had hope. Hope that she was somewhere. Hope that she would come home. Hope that Gary, Carla, Gina, and Brandon would get a call saying Jessie was still alive.
Not a mean bone in her body, just. And the main thing is I just want my sister back.
She was a free spirit,
Was she?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way both of us are. I mean, that's the way we were brought up, is to
Be
yourself and not worry about what other people think.
She didn't really, and when I know her, she really didn't have dark days, I mean, she just found the light of everything.
She was just full of life, man. I mean, she is full of life. I keep catching myself saying that she was, but I still have to have hope that she is, Me and Jessie have been on the streets, per se, for so long that she should, if she was out there, I just feel like she would know what to do to get home to us. Whatever happened, she didn't deserve any of it, I mean, she hasn't never hurt a soul in her life, you know.
So we just love her, and we're going to hold on to every piece of hope until she's home.
Yeah, we just want her home, man. I mean,
We just want her home.
But after May 19, 2016, those prayers changed. And then, in June 2016, Brandon, Jessie's brother, did something that truly fit who she was. Jessie and Brandon once made a promise to each other. If one of them passed away first, the other would not hold a funeral filled only with tears. They would hold a festival, a gathering with music, art, light, and the people who loved them. So Brandon organized the Love and Light Festival to honor his sister. About 900 people came. After Jessie was brought back to her family, the only thing left for them to wait for was justice. A moment when Jason Lowe would have to sit in front of a jury and hear everything he had done brought into the light. For Gary, the pain quickly turned into anger, and honestly, it is hard to blame him. He did not just lose his daughter, he also had to live with the fact that Jason had once stood right in front of him, lied, dodged questions, controlled the calls, and then kept making things up as if everyone around him had collectively lost their brain Wi-Fi. Gary once said that during that period, he printed out a photo of Jason, placed it on a tree stump, and smashed it with a sledgehammer. Not because it changed anything, but because sometimes when a father cannot bring his child back, he has to find some way not to be swallowed whole by his own anger. But then, as the case moved closer to trial, Jessie's family had to face another truth. Taking Jason to court did not mean anything would be easy. There was no clear scene where Jessie died. There was no exact cause of death. There was no firmly established motive. Even after Jason was charged with murder, the case still depended heavily on circumstantial evidence. The Acura had been sold. The Audi was covered in mud. The Blue Star reaction in the rear compartment of the vehicle. The smell of decomposition in the garage. The changing statements. And the fact that Jason himself led authorities to the place where Jessie was found. The Texas Court of Appeals later also noted that Jason challenged the conviction by arguing there was no direct physical evidence of the cause of death, insufficient evidence of intent and motive, but the court still upheld the verdict. In other words, prosecutors did not walk into trial with a neat little story tied up with a bow. And then came a detail that made the case even harder to stomach. After Jason was charged with murder, one of his friends, Tommy, visited him in jail. Tommy did not want to believe Jason was truly connected to Jessie's death, and I understand that. No one wants to think that someone who once walked into their home, ate with them, and house sat for them could be hiding something that awful. But the problem was, Tommy also had reasons to be suspicious. From May 1 to May 4, 2016, Jason and Jessie house sat for Tommy and his wife. When Tommy and his wife came home, they noticed several things in the house were no longer where they belonged. Some items were missing. Among them were towels and a blue fitted bed sheet. And if you remember, when Jessie was found in Farmersville, she was wrapped in a blue sheet, and that was not all. Tommy also noticed that the tools in his garage had been wiped clean and arranged neatly in an unusual way. Not in the thanks for house sitting, so I cleaned up for you kind of way. More like someone had tried to clean something up. When news spread that Jason had been arrested, Tommy could no longer ignore that feeling. He went to see Jason in jail and asked him directly, did something happen inside his house? In other words, Tommy wasn't just asking about Jessie. He was asking a much more frightening question. Was my house where everything started? Jason did not say no. He did not clearly deny it. He only said, "I can't promise that. And I don't know about you, but if someone asks, 'Hey, did you do something terrible in my house?' the correct answer is usually, 'No, not. I can't promise that.'" Jason also said that nothing serious happened there, that everything was very minimal, very minimal. In September 2017, Jason Lowe's trial officially began in Collin County, Texas. Jessie's family was in the courtroom to witness what they had waited more than a year for. Jason having to answer to a jury, no longer hiding behind evasive words in the apartment. No longer using the line, "We didn't depend on each other," like a curtain. The trial lasted several days. Many witnesses were called to the stand, and one of the most important testimonies came from Gary Bardwell. Just the fact that Gary was there said a lot. He had not flown on a plane in about 30 years, but this time he flew to Texas. Not because he wanted to relive that nightmare in front of strangers, but because if there was one place Gary had to stand up for Jessie, it was the courtroom. When he took the witness stand, his hands were shaking so badly that he was afraid the whole courtroom could see it. And hearing that, I don't see weakness. I see a father being forced to do the cruelest job of his life, describing how his daughter was pulled away from her family before she disappeared. Gary's testimony was not just about who Jessie was. It helped prosecutors rebuild a very specific change. Before Jason, Jessie regularly stayed in contact with her family. After she went to Texas, that contact narrowed. Her phone was no longer a direct line, and Jason often stood between the calls. The prosecution did not want the jury to see Jason as a boyfriend who had simply panicked after an accident. They wanted to present a very different picture. A man who was used to lying, used to controlling people, and who started making up stories when he found himself backed into a corner. During trial preparation, the state also located 2 of Jason's former girlfriends. According to them, Jason had shown controlling behavior in previous relationships, the kind that isolates a girlfriend from her family, narrows her circle of communication, and gradually turns him into the person holding power in her life. Sound familiar? Because that is exactly what Jessie's family said happened after she moved to Texas. One of the 2 women also accused Jason of attacking her during a very dangerous incident. According to her account, Jason pushed her down, held her in place, restricted her breathing, and directly told her that he was killing her. That was an extremely serious allegation. Even though testimony from the 2 former girlfriends was not admitted at trial, prosecutors still had reason to feel confident, because Jason had already placed himself in a very difficult position to escape. He admitted that he was there when Jessie died, and from that moment on, the question was no longer, did Jason know anything? The question became, what did he do after Jessie was no longer alive? The evidence did not give prosecutors a clean crime scene. They could not say exactly which house Jessie died in, which room it happened in, or how it happened. Instead, he lied about the Acura, stayed silent about Jessie's location, left traces in the garage, and his Audi became a central part of the case. According to investigative records, the rear compartment of the Audi showed a blue star reaction indicating signs of blood. The garage had a clear smell of decomposition. The vehicle was covered in mud. And Jason himself later led authorities to the place where Jessie was found in Farmersville. That was not the behavior of someone who had just experienced an accident and panicked for a few minutes. That was a chain of actions by someone trying to hide the aftermath. And as if everything Jason had done was not cruel enough, prosecutors also presented a detail that made the whole story even colder. While Jessie was no longer alive, Jason was accused of still using her phone to send text messages, creating the impression that she was still okay, still moving around freely, and still able to respond to people. To put it plainly, that was not just lying. That was creating a fake version of Jessie to hide the truth about the real Jessie. And I don't know what could be more insulting than that. A woman had lost her voice, and Jason used her own phone to keep writing for her, to keep the act going, and to keep her family holding on to false hope. But it did not stop there. According to prosecutors, during that same period, Jason also sent sexual text messages to at least 5 other women. And this is the part that really makes you stop. Because the defense could say panic. They could say accident. They could say he did not know how to handle it. But someone panicking because his girlfriend just died does not usually spend time faking messages from her phone, then turning around and sexually flirting with multiple other women. By this point, prosecutors had built a pretty clear picture of Jason Lowe, a man who lied in layers, controlled information, hid evidence, and only started telling the truth when everything had closed in around him. But the defense could not let the jury see the story that way, so they offered their own version. This was not murder. This was a horrific accident. And to sell that story, Jason had to do something extremely risky. He took the witness stand himself. According to Jason, while he and Jessie were house-sitting, for Tommy and his wife, they both used GHB, a substance prosecutors described as connected to sexual activity and illegal drug use. After that, Jason said he and Jessie were in the bathroom. Jessie slipped, hit her head, then started feeling hot and dizzy. I don't know about you, but when someone has just suffered a head injury, feels hot, dizzy, and clearly unwell, sleep it off is not exactly the kind of response that makes everyone nod and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." The next morning, Jason said he woke up and found Jessie lying on his chest, unresponsive. According to Jason, when he woke up and found Jessie unresponsive, he did not call 911. He did not call police. He did not call her family. He said he panicked. And somehow, Jason's panic did not lead to a call for help. It led to a cover-up plan. Jason testified that right then his drug supplier showed up. And according to Jason's version, that person helped him wrap Jessie in a bedsheet and put her in the trunk. Yeah, a story so convenient it sounds like it was written to shift some of the blame onto someone who was not in the courtroom. But Jason still had to admit the parts he could not avoid. He admitted he left Jessie in his vehicle for about 4 days. He admitted he sent sexual text messages to multiple other women during that same time. And the defense tried to frame those details as part of Jason's addiction issues: drug addiction, addiction to sexual texting, and out-of-control behavior that had started when he was young. To put it plainly, they were trying to humanize Jason in front of the jury, not to make Jason look completely innocent, but to make him look like a damaged, addicted, panicked person, not someone who intentionally killed Jessie. Jason also tried to say that he and Jessie loved each other deeply and that they had once talked about buying a house and getting married. And honestly, that sounded weak. It sounded like the "we really loved each other" part was being dragged out once every other piece of evidence had started burning around the edges. The defense also tried to give Jason one last chance to look sympathetic. They kept reminding the jury that Jason was the one who led authorities to the place where Jessie was found. At first, that might sound like a mitigating point, as if he finally did the right thing, as if somewhere inside this whole mess of lies, Jason still had one little piece of conscience trying to crawl out of the wreckage. But no, that story was not as clean as the defense wanted it to sound. They argued that Jason revealed Jessie's location for the sake of her family, and honestly, that line almost sounds insulting. For the sake of her family? Jessie's family had to call through Jason just to hear her voice. They had to drive 11 hours to Texas to look for her. They had to listen to him say she drove away in a car that had actually been sold before then. They had to wait in agony while he knew exactly where Jessie was. So let's not wrap that in a moral bow and call it compassion. According to the case account, Jason did not simply reveal Jessie's location because he wanted to help her family. He did it in the context of an agreement. If convicted, he would face a 50-year sentence instead of the risk of 99 years. And the bitterest part is that Jessie's family did not know the full story at first. Initially, they were only told that a reliable source had led authorities to the place where Jessie was found. They were not clearly told that the source was Jason himself. After a few hours of deliberation, the jury came back with a verdict. Jason Lowe was guilty of murder. And in the end, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Under Texas law, for a murder conviction, Jason Lowe will not automatically be released after just a few years. To become eligible for parole, he must serve actual time equal to half of his sentence, or 30 years, whichever comes first. And that time does not include good conduct time. With a 50-year prison sentence, half of that sentence is 25 years. That means the earliest Jason could be considered for parole would be around 2041. Depending on how the Texas Department of Criminal Justice calculates his actual time served and pretrial credits. And to be clear, being eligible for parole does not mean being released. It only means the parole board can begin reviewing his case. Whether Jason actually walks out of prison or not is a whole different story. So 50 years may sound like a number with an ending. But for the Bardwell family, after everything they had been through, 50 years still felt far too light. Not because they did not understand how the justice system works. They did. They knew. Prosecutors had to make a deal to bring Jessie home, strengthen the case, and make sure Jason could not walk out of that courtroom like an innocent man. But understanding something and accepting it are two different things. And I think anyone hearing this understands why Gary could not see that number as enough. After the verdict, Gary was allowed to read his victim impact statement, a statement describing how the crime had affected the victim's family.
Jessie was one of the most special people on the planet to me. I mean, I was her dad.
Gary Bardwell was one of the key witnesses in the trial of Jason Lowe, the man now convicted of murdering his daughter.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder.
When they finally announced the verdict, my heart was just beating out of my chest.
It was a year and 4 months ago Bardwell reported his daughter Jessie missing. Police questioned Lowe, her boyfriend, and found evidence of decaying flesh in his car. He later led them to find her body in a field in Farmersville.
There's a deafening silence in my life. I don't know if you can understand what I mean by that. is since Jessie's been gone, it seems like the world has turned off. She kept my heart beating. She kept me smiling.
At the end of trial today, Bardwell gave a statement, deliberately staring into Lowe's eyes as he read it.
When you look in his eyes, there is nothing there.
Bardwell says he's seen no sign of remorse. Just one reason: he has no intention to forgive.
People say, forgive this person. You're not going to get better until you forgive this person. I don't look at him like a person. He's the devil. And I want to know how in the hell you forgive the devil.
In the courtroom, Gary Bardwell did not try to seem calmer than his pain. He said Jessie was one of the most special people in the world to him. Then he said one very simple sentence: I am her father. And sometimes that alone is enough. Gary did not need a long explanation for the jury to understand what Jessie meant to him. He was the man who raised her, loved her, searched for her, flew to Texas even though he had not been on a plane in about 30 years, and then sat in a courtroom listening to people talk about his daughter's final days. When the jury found Jason Lowe guilty of murder, it was the moment Jessie's family had waited for more than a year, ever since Gary reported his daughter missing in May 2016. After the trial, Gary read his victim impact statement. He looked straight at Jason as he spoke. No dancing around it, no trying to make his pain sound easier to hear. He said that since Jessie was gone, his life had carried a very clear silence. The world felt like someone had turned the sound down. Jessie had been the person who kept him smiling, who kept his heart beating. After the trial, back in her hometown of Pascagoula, Mississippi, Jessie's family and community kept her memory alive through the Jessie Bardwell Memorial Scholarship, a scholarship fund managed by First Methodist Church of Pascagoula. According to the scholarship records, the fund was created to honor Jessie and provide annual support to students. A quiet but deeply fitting way to reflect who she was, turning loss into a chance for young people to keep moving forward. And I think this is the part cases like this need to tell more clearly. Because Jessie's story does not end with Jason Lowe, the Audi, or the 50-year sentence. It is also a reminder of the warning signs that appeared before the tragedy. Jessie's family has spoken about wanting to raise awareness of violence in romantic relationships. Gary Bardwell also wants to record the song Taken Away, with the goal of spreading awareness about violence against women and children. Thank you all for watching until the end of the video. If you have any thoughts about this case, leave a comment down below. What do you think was the clearest warning sign that everyone saw too late? And if you believe stories like this need to be told, not to exploit pain, but to understand, to warn others, and to remember the victim the right way, please like, subscribe, and share this video. My name is Luca. I'll see you in the next true crime documentary. And stay safe out there. And if a love story sounds too perfect, but starts with someone being cut off from their entire world, please don't call that love. Gabrielle Renee Barrett, often called Gabby, was born on September 30th, 2013. She grew up in Michigan in a young family that had never truly been stable. Her biological father was Kyle Barrett. Her mother was Candace Renea Diaz. Gabby was a 4-year-old girl with a bright face and a natural smile that caught people's attention the moment they met her. For most of her short life, she lived under the care of her grandmother, In a stable environment with clear routines and genuine attention, those around her remembered Gabby as an affectionate child who loved giving tight hugs when she saw someone she knew and liked sitting close to adults. At that time, she was preparing to start kindergarten, a normal milestone for many families. But for Gabby, it marked an important transition. Unfortunately, like many young couples, their relationship was short-lived, and Kyle left in 2014 when Gabby was only about 3 or 4 months old. In early 2015, when Gabby was 18 months old, Candace met and began a relationship with a man named Brad Edward Fields, who was 4 years older than her. Over time, Candace started spending less time at Cynthia's home and more time at Brad's place. The couple moved several times before settling in the Rawsonville Woods mobile home community in Belleville, Michigan. At first, Gabby remained in Cynthia's care while her mother focused on the new relationship. By all accounts, Cynthia was a responsible caregiver who provided structure and attention. If things had remained that way, the outcome might have been very different. But when Gabby turned 4, a legal issue changed everything. Because Cynthia was not her legal guardian, she could not enroll Gabby in the local preschool program. As a result, Gabby had to move back in with Candace and Brad in the mobile home at Rawsonville Woods. The early phase with Brad did not last long. By 2016, the relationship began to show clear signs of losing control. One night, Candace called 911 after leaving the mobile home and running to a community building in the area to find safety. According to her statement, Brad assaulted her, broke her phone, caused serious harm to the pets in the home. As Candace fled, he was accused of making violent threats. When police arrived, they were not just responding to a case of violence between 2 adults. As officers entered the mobile home, they were met with a heavy presence of flies. Trash had not been removed. Spoiled food was left out in the open. Dirty dishes were piled up in the sink. On the living room floor and in the children's sleeping area, there was animal waste that had not been cleaned. A rabbit was kept in a cage that had not been sanitized. You know, this was not just a messy home. This was the environment a 4-year-old child was living in every day. And when you look at that picture, you start to ask, if these signs were already present in 2016, how many chances were there to stop this earlier? In addition to the severe unsanitary conditions, police also documented dried biological stains believed to be blood on the floor, indicating that a violent incident had occurred inside the mobile home before they arrived. When the search continued, authorities seized a stun gun, prescription medication, a camouflage bag containing multiple knives, a handgun with 2 magazines, another handgun, and a small caliber magazine with no matching firearm found. The firearms were hidden beneath the metal grates of the fireplace, one in the bathroom and one in the living room. One had its serial number filed off. The other was not registered as required. Brad was taken into custody in connection with domestic violence allegations. But just 3 days later, Candace went to the police station and requested to withdraw the charges. She stated that Brad had mental health issues and was not taking his medication. At the same time, she claimed ownership of the 2 firearms. That decision led to her arrest. And when you look back at the records from that point, you begin to see a chain of warning signs that appeared very early. The question is, why did no one stop it while there was still a chance? During that time, Candace had another baby girl with Brad named Zoe. According to family members and court records, Zoe was cared for normally. She was fed, held, and given attention. But in that same mobile home, Gabby did not receive the same treatment. Most of the abuse toward Gabby began with small accidents during bathroom use. At 4 years old, even with early training, occasional incidents are not uncommon for children. Notably, these incidents only occurred when Gabby was at home. At preschool, no issues were reported. Child behavior experts state that recurring toileting problems can be a sign of stress in a child's environment. When a child feels pressure or fear, the body responds in its own way. And if the adult response is yelling or punishment, the situation often gets worse. But instead of offering support, Candace and Brad responded with violence. According to court records, Gabby was subjected to physical force to the head and body and was required to be exposed to cold water as a form of discipline. She was forced to use stimulants without a medical prescription. Brad later admitted to using a kitchen item to injure her. Gabby was forced to wear a trash bag instead of clothing. Her bedding was taken away. She had to sleep on the cold living room floor. What makes this case even more chilling is that a pattern of repeated harmful behavior was not hidden. According to court records, Brad and Candace exchanged Facebook messages about how they punished Gabby. In those messages, Brad made statements that were threatening and degrading toward a 4-year-old child. In one exchange, Brad sent a video showing Gabby being required to wear a trash bag and walk around the house. Candace's response was not to stop it or object. She replied by asking whether Brad wanted anything from McDonald's. Let that sink in for a moment. While a child was being treated in a degrading way, the conversation between the two adults continued as if it were a normal day. On New Year's Eve in 2017, they posted a photo with Zoe, along with a Happy New Year message on social media. Gabby did not appear in that photo. On the morning of January 1st, 2018, everything reached a point of no return. When she became unresponsive, 911 was not called immediately. Instead, at 10:05 a.m., Candace called her adoptive mother, Cynthia. Cynthia drove about 30 minutes to the home and attempted resuscitation. It was not until 10:41 a.m. that a 911 call was finally made. At trial, Cynthia testified that when she arrived, Brad was performing CPR in the bathroom.
Who called you on New Year's Day?
My daughter Candace.
When she called you, can you describe her demeanor?
The only thing I can tell you is she was crying and she said Gabby wasn't responding, and all I know is I said I'm on my way.
Okay.
Took me 30 minutes. I was in Westland.
Did you walk into the trailer?
No.
What happened?
Candace met me at the door and opened it, and then we went back to the bathroom.
And when you went back to the bathroom, what did you observe?
My granddaughter on the floor.
Did you observe any other adults?
Yes, Brad was in there giving her CPR.
Did you see her coloring?
The coloring looked normal to me.
Yeah.
The color of her what, skin?
Yes, ma'am.
How long did the compressions from Brad go on in the bathroom?
Until I took over.
How long before you took over?
Probably 2-3 minutes.
Did you instruct anybody to make any other phone calls?
Yes, I told Candace to call 911.
At any of the point that you were doing CPR, did your granddaughter respond?
No.
Did her color still look just right to you?
It looked the same as when I came in.
Which is what?
Normal to me.
So you remained in the bathroom, is that right, for a while?
I remained in the bathroom till the police took over the CPR.
Did you notice any water in that bathroom at all?
No.
No, you did not notice?
No, there was no water in the bathroom.
There was no water in the bathroom there at all. Is that correct?
Not on the floor, not in the tub, no ma'am.
And was Gabby wet enough?
No.
Was your daughter wet enough?
No.
Was Brad wet enough?
To my knowledge, no.
Did you see anything wrong with her with skin or physically wrong with her in the bathroom?
All I saw was red marks behind her calf on each leg and on her backside where her butt is.
And when did you notice that?
When I took over a CPR.
Was she laying on her stomach or her back?
She was on her back.
How did you see red marks on her behind and so on?
There was red marks that came towards the front of her stomach.
Were you able to tell what those red marks looked like?
The only thing I can tell you is on the legs, it was like there was a little bit of the skin, like when you get a blister. And on the back, it was a little redder, but other than that, that's all I could tell you.
And what were you told regarding Gabby?
That she had passed away.
According to the first responders' report, when they arrived at the scene, no adult was performing CPR on Gabby. The bathtub was empty. The bathroom floor was dry. Aside from Gabby's slightly damp hair and a few wet towels, there were no signs consistent with a recent drowning. The adult's clothing was also dry, because the 911 call was described as a suspected drowning situation involving water. But the physical scene did not reflect that. Paramedics also did not observe signs of vomiting, which are often present in many drowning cases. At the scene, emergency personnel could not determine exactly when the injuries had occurred. Instead, they observed severe thermal injuries on Gabby's body. Inside the ambulance, Gabby was intubated to support her breathing. In addition, her fingertips showed no wrinkling from prolonged water exposure. If a child has been submerged for an extended period, that reaction is commonly present. Here, it was not. Candace rode in the ambulance to the hospital. Brad stayed behind at the mobile home with Zoe. While law enforcement officers were still at the scene, the two began exchanging text messages. According to investigative records, the messages did not focus on Gabby's condition. Instead, they shifted toward blaming each other and worrying about legal consequences. Candace wrote that she might be going to jail and told Brad to fix everything immediately. She speculated that if Gabby survived, she could tell mandated reporters that she had not been properly cared for. At the end of the exchange, Candace wrote that her life was over and mentioned an intent to cause harm. Brad replied that police were trying to search him and Zoe, and that he could face legal trouble for refusing consent to search the mobile home. Fortunately for investigators, they quickly obtained a search warrant, so Brad's consent was no longer required. Both of their phones were seized. Once the data was extracted, the full chain of messages from that day, along with earlier exchanges, began to paint a very different picture from their initial statements. The search of the mobile home revealed serious findings. Inside the bathtub drain, investigators recovered biological material and hair that was later confirmed to belong to Gabby. In the laundry room, a trash bag contained gauze with traces of blood, hair, used gloves, an empty bottle of an oxidizing solution used for first aid, and containers of topical ointment. Forensic testing confirmed Gabby's DNA on the recovered hair samples, and DNA from both Brad and Gabby was found on multiple pairs of gloves. Gabby's bedroom was nearly bare. There was no bedding on the mattress. The bed had been pushed against the wall. There were no signs of a space prepared for a 4-year-old child to rest normally. Gabrielle Renee Barrett was transported to St. Joseph Mercy Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There, doctors pronounced her dead. The medical examiner's report listed the cause of death as septic shock in the setting of prolonged child abuse. But that medical conclusion was only a brief summary of a far more complex reality. The examination showed that Gabby had multiple injuries from direct impact to the body, including blunt force trauma. Toxicology results detected the presence of caffeine and amphetamine in her system, stimulant substances not appropriate for a 4-year-old child without adult administration. Poor hygiene and clear malnutrition were described in the report. Dear friends, please join me in taking a moment to remember Gabrielle by leaving a heart or a white dove icon in the comments below. Every interaction you have with this true crime documentary helps us confront the truth and strengthen our responsibility to the community. May peace be with you all, and in your opinion, what is the biggest flaw that caused the child protection system to fail in this case? A few days after Gabby passed away, arrest warrants were issued for Candace Diaz and Brad Fields. But when authorities went to locate them, both had already left Michigan. A nationwide alert was issued for a black 2002 Chevy Cavalier with Michigan license plate DTR 1854. 4 days later, they were found in Lowndes County, Georgia, near the Florida-Georgia state line. And that raises another question. If this had been an accident, why leave the state? When taken into custody, Brad told investigators it was all a misunderstanding and that they were on their way back to Michigan to turn themselves in to the U.S. Marshals. But by that point, the physical evidence, phone data, and forensic findings were pointing in a different direction. At trial, both defendants raised mental health conditions as part of their defense strategy. Candace, who was 24 at the time, stated that she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. She referenced her unstable childhood as a contributing factor. Brad, 28 years old, testified that he had been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, social anxiety, agoraphobia, and PTSD. Brad Edward Fields was charged with the most serious offenses under Michigan law: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, first-degree child abuse, and torture. His defense team argued that he was not directly involved in abusing Gabby. However, text message data recovered from his phone showed clear awareness of and participation in what was happening inside the mobile home. On October 9, 2018, the jury found Fields guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Candace Renea Diaz initially faced similar charges. However, on December 5, 2018, she accepted a plea agreement. The charges were reduced to second-degree murder and first-degree child abuse, and the remaining counts were dismissed under the deal. Candace was sentenced to 30 to 60 years in prison. One received life without parole. The other received a term of years. The justice system allows plea agreements for many reasons, including avoiding prolonged trials and securing a guaranteed conviction. But in cases involving children, differences in sentencing often raise questions about responsibility and the role each adult played inside that home. In the end, both were held accountable under the law. Yet the way the system handled each defendant sparked an ongoing debate. At sentencing, Judge Vonda Evans did not hide her anger. She spoke about the role of a mother, that bringing a child into the world is a fragile moment between life and death, an act of giving new life. She emphasized that a mother's responsibility is to protect, nurture, and guide that child into adulthood.
When a woman gives birth, she's closer to death than life. Her body opens up to reveal another life. It is one of the most beautiful and fulfilling parts of being a woman. A mother's job is to train and nurture her child into adulthood. It's her gift to humanity, the gift of life. But you killed your daughter for the love of a bum named Brad, an unemployed, drug-taking, manipulative loser. Your beautiful daughter, Gabby, was a sacrifice you gave that bum Brad to fulfill his sick and demonic sense of love and control. You allowed him to put your child in a garbage bag when she wet herself, to give her drugs. Your response was, Brad beat her ass. What crime could this precious child commit that would cause such severe punishment? None. After he showed you a video of him torturing your child in a garbage bag, your response was, do you want some McDonald's? You were never a mother to your child. You were a female breeder who neglected your child for the love of a bum named Brad. Never in my 21 years on the bench have I seen a child sustain the injuries inflicted upon her. Dental decay, burn injuries on her behind, vomit in her lungs, immersion burns, resulting in her being placed in scalding hot water, and traumatic alopecia. Her hair was pulled out from her scalp while she was alive. The ultimate cause of death was septic shock. Her little body couldn't take it anymore abuse.
Gabby's visitation was held at the Ute Funeral Home in Westland, Michigan. A private funeral took place the following day. She was later cremated. There has been no public information about where her ashes were laid to rest. The family chose to keep that detail private. Her younger sister Zoe was placed in the Michigan's protective care system. Her identity and location have been kept confidential under child protection laws. And honestly, that may have been the one part of this story where the system acted in time for a child. Gabby's biological father, Kyle Barrett, was 26 at the time. He did not live in the mobile home and, according to records, was unaware of what was happening inside. The last time he saw his daughter was just before he turned himself in on an outstanding warrant in September. Kyle was released from the Washtenaw County Jail on January 3rd, 2 days after Gabby passed away. He walked out of jail into a world where his daughter was already gone. No chance to say goodbye. No chance to make things right. Only an empty space that would never be filled. As of now, 2026, there have been no major legal changes to the sentences given to the perpetrators in the Gabrielle Renee Barrett case. Both remain incarcerated in prisons in the state of Michigan. The case of Gabby Barrett is not just a true crime case that ended with prison sentences for Candace Renee Diaz and Brad Edward Fields. In Michigan's records, it stands as a child abuse case that led to a tragic child case, forcing the Sumter Township community to take a hard look at itself. But beyond the verdict, this is a warning about our shared responsibility in protecting vulnerable children. In most child neglect cases and child victim documentaries we follow, the warning signs do not appear out of nowhere. They are usually there. In deteriorating living conditions, in injuries explained away too quickly, in unusual fear or withdrawal in a child's behavior. When we look back at the Gabby Barrett true crime story, the question is not only who committed the crime. The question is, who saw something, and what did they do after they saw it? Protecting children does not begin in a courtroom or inside a crime documentary. It begins in the community, with a neighbor who recognizes that something feels wrong, with a teacher who understands the responsibility of being a mandatory reporter, with a relative who chooses to stand with the child instead of staying silent. Reporting suspicion is not about breaking a family apart. It may be the first step toward justice for victims. You know, we cannot turn back time for Gabby. But from this story, a true crime documentary about a failure in child protection, we can do better. If every adult sees child safety as a shared responsibility, not just the job of the system or someone else, many child tragedies could be prevented before it is too late. Gabby is not here to grow up, but her story, within the true crime community, can become the reason another child is seen sooner. And sometimes, one person speaking up at the right moment is enough to change the outcome. This video was created for educational purposes and to raise public awareness about justice and child protection. It is never intended to exploit shock value or sensational elements. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for future true crime documentaries, where every story is a voice for justice for children, for child protection, and for a world where every child is safe, loved, and heard.